What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. In today's episode, I want to show you how I wash my vehicles. Now, some of you may have seen my video where I show you the Ryobi Power Clean and how I use the waterless wash. And today I'm going to give you an overview on that whole process from kind of start to finish. And the big thing about this is my Mustang is black, so it shows everything. And it also has soft paint, meaning it mars very easily. So you have to use extra care when dealing with something like this, and I'm proud to say I have fully paint corrected this back in the fall. It looks awesome, and I've been able to keep it that way because of how I wash everything. So guys, let's get started, and I hope you pick up some good knowledge from this. So guys, you can see behind me, I got the car here in the garage, and you can see it's a little dirty. It's just mostly from being outside and it was raining, but you know, the car still looks really nice, super glossy. And I just try to be super careful of this because of the soft paint. To kind of give you an idea of what I keep saying with soft paint, what that means is there is a scale, it's imaginary, but there's a scale with automotive paint. So that goes from soft to hard. And a lot of people would think, oh, I want hard paint. The thing is, you really want to have somewhere in the middle, because when you have soft paint like on my Mustang, it mars very easily, which means that the slightest things can scratch the paint and you have to be super careful. But this is a double-edged sword because it also means that when you go to use paint correction techniques, you can actually damage the paint and the clear coat because it can't take the aggressive nature of different pads, different products, or anything that a lot of harder paints show more tolerance to. On the flip side, on the hard end, this is something, I mean, I'm not a paint correction expert, but I'm pretty knowledgeable. A lot of GM vehicles have really hard paint, and you may think, oh, it's like a tough shell, it's going to be okay. But really what that means is you have to be super aggressive with how you are able to tackle the paint and the clear coat in order to get it to remove the swirl. So on the soft end, you have to be super careful and use less aggressive, but on the hard end, you have to be more aggressive. And in both cases, you run the risk of removing a lot of your clear coat, which from the factory is usually like the thickness or less than the sheet of printer paper. Most vehicles tend to fall somewhere in the middle, much like my F-150. That falls more in the middle, it's a lot easier to correct. And the thing about black is, like on my Mustang, it shows everything. But unlike what a lot of people say of like, black's always gonna look like crap, don't listen to that, because I was able to take this car and go from swirled to a really, really impressive finish. So let's talk about the tools of the trade. And no, I'm not talking about the Crocs with socks. I'm talking about these two buckets. Now, I've had these two buckets for so long. They're 5-gallon buckets, and in the bottom you'll see these little things in the bottom. These are called grit guards, and the whole point is that it's going to work to trap any of the debris you get from washing your vehicle down at the bottom. So when you take your wash mitt, microfiber, whatever you're using, you can kind of rub it on it. It's going to trap a lot of that stuff below and not get it into the rest of the bucket. The other thing with the two buckets is this is called the 2-bucket method. I've been doing this for, gosh, probably 11 years now. And what you do is one bucket is going to be filled with your soap, or I use rinseless wash, so I'll show you that here. But that's your primary bucket where the clean water and solution is. The second bucket is going to be what you use to clean off your wash mitt or towel, whatever it is. So you always want to rinse it off in here before putting it back in the bucket, the clean bucket. And why you're doing this is as you do each panel on the vehicle, when you dip it in the clean solution, you're washing the vehicle, then you want to take and get rid of any of the garbage that the microfiber or mitt picked up and kind of rinse it off in here, and then before you go back into your clean bucket, because you're just trying to avoid contamination. Now if you watched that video, I'll put a link up to it up in the top on the Ryobi washer. You saw that I talked about Optimum No Rinse. Now I have had this jug for probably a decade. It's getting time to almost order it again. This stuff has a lot of uses. Maybe I'll go through it in a future video, but for the main purpose of this video, it's a wash solution. So it has a high dilution ratio, so you only need a little bit into X amount of gallons of water, and then you're able to wash so many uses out of this. I mean, I've had this thing for a long time. And so basically what I do is I put a little bit into the 5-gallon bucket and then a little bit into the kind of dirty water bucket. And so I'm always having some of that solution because you want to make sure you have enough lubrication because you're not using a traditional soap using a waterless method. All right, guys, so we have our 2 buckets and we have the Ryobi Power Clean. So up here, I fill this bucket up pretty good. You can see that bluish tinge from the Optimum No Rinse. What I like to do is fill this up pretty darn high because what I do is I use the Power Clean and rinse off the whole car. The beauty of this is, again, it adds lubrication, so when you're doing a waterless wash, I will gladly take as much lubrication as possible. So between the bucket and pre-rinsing the car, you're already starting to get some on the car. And then here we have our rinse-off bucket for our microfibers. Do not be stingy. I have a ton of these, and you want to make sure you have plenty on hand because you're really only supposed to do a panel or 2 at a time with one, and then you go to the next one. And start with a clean one because you don't want to be taking any sort of dirty, contaminated microfiber and just moving it all the way down your paint, and that's a good way to get marring, which is just going to make your original detail go to hell in a handbasket very, very quickly. Now we got the car all washed off, we're going to get ready to dry. And so what I like to do is to use, again, lubrication on the paint, but also add a little bit more gloss and a little bit more protection. So what I've been thrilled with is this TurtleWax Hybrid Solutions. This is the ceramic spray coating. I've already used this. This stuff's excellent. Maybe I'll do a future video on this. But this is their ceramic wet wax. And so think of this as like a drying aid. Sometimes a product that people will also use is the Duragloss Aqua Wax. I've used this. I got a lot of this left. I've just been really enjoying the gloss from this Turtle Wax. It's unbelievable. It goes on super easy, but you just have to remember with any sort of ceramic spray, you really need to be mindful of the quantity you're using and how much you're working on the car, because they literally tell you 1 to 2 sprays per panel. And they mean it because ceramic sprays tend to streak. And on a black car, you'll be seeing those outside in the sun. It's gonna look horrible. So what we're gonna do here is just kind of give this a couple of shakes, and then I'm just gonna show you kind of on this panel here. So it's honestly just 2 sprays, and then I take a clean microfiber, the same style I was using, and I just work it back and forth. And not only is this drying, but it's gonna add that nice gloss and a little bit more protection, because with a lot of these ceramics products, this is obviously not as durable as, say, like a graphene coating you'd put on in a bottle, but these things work really, really well. And for someone that's been using traditional waxes my whole life with this was kind of a weird concept, but these things, these synthetic ceramic sprays are so durable, and then you upkeep it with this wet wax. It's honestly kind of screws with your mind a little bit, but you can't beat the gloss and you can't beat the protection that these offer for just a few dollars. Now, one little tip here is you can see how good of a job you did washing, because as you can see on this, it's still nice and yellow. And that means that I didn't leave behind any dirt. And it kind of debunks what a lot of people think on rinseless washes. They think that you can't do a good job, that they're gonna scratch the hell out of the paint. And I can tell you, having a car with soft paint and it's black to boot, this pretty much debunks a lot of that. It's all in how you're using it and the combination of products and whatnot that you're choosing to use. So here's what I'm talking about with the streaks. And I'm leaving this intentionally. You can almost see these little marks here. And that's what happens is as your microfiber gets a little saturated, if that's a little bit easier, you can see this. You really gotta watch this, because this stuff dries and it'll leave a mess. You can kind of see the way it's right here. And so what I like to do is I go around the car and then I buff it off again with another clean microfiber. Just because this stuff maybe drips as you're going around, you can kind of see here, you can't leave this. This is where it's starting to get a little saturated. You can see as I flipped over the microfiber, some of that's kind of going away, which again, you can burn you if you don't catch this, because this is going to turn into a hideous streak once this stuff kind of dries. So it's just something you need to keep in mind. This goes for any ceramic spray. You can really see it right here. Alright guys, as you can see, I've got the car all washed, cleaned up, looking real good. But let's get it outside and see how she looks out in the sun. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching. I always appreciate it. Let me know if you have any questions. Always happy to answer anything that I can. You know, the paint correction is something I'd like to make a video at some point, just kind of from a hobbyist perspective, but I think doing it the way I did here is a great way to keep your finish looking as good as possible. So for now, again, thank you so much for watching, and we'll talk to you in the next one. Take care.